It's one of K-Beauty's favourite ingredients, and with its ability to repair skin damage, actively hydrate and fight wrinkles, it's little wonder. Today on the Korean Beauty Show, we're going to be taking a look at the truth behind snail mucin. Welcome to the Korean Beauty Show, where we're talking all things Korean skincare, makeup, and more. If you want to learn about the hottest trending products and ingredients straight from South Korea, then this is the podcast for you. Each week, we'll be diving in to take a look at the latest trends, as well as all the tips and tricks you need to perfect your K-beauty routine. I'm your host, Lauren Lee, professional K-beauty expert and founder of Korean beauty platform Style Story. Welcome back to the Korean Beauty Show. Today I'm excited to dive into a topic that I know can be a little bit of a head scratcher, particularly for those who are new to K-beauty. But first, if we haven't already met, allow me to introduce myself really quickly. My name's Lauren Lee, and I'm an Aussie who is living in Seoul, South Korea. I'm the founder of Australia's first online K-beauty store, Style Story, and I also do a lot of things in the K-beauty industry in Korea. I work as a product manufacturer and brand consultant. So I'm also going to quickly introduce today's sponsors. The sponsors of today's podcast are Style Story. You can check them out at www.stylestory.com.au for all your K-beauty needs. So today I'm going to let you know everything you need to know before you get snailing. So snail mucin is one of these ingredients that I know can be quite controversial, particularly for people that are just discovering it for the first time. I have spoken to a lot of people that are very concerned, rightfully so, about the welfare of the snails, and from even more people that just ask the simple question, well, why do we need to, kill animals to feed our beauty addiction? I think that's a really great question. And the good news is that we do not need to do that. We do not need to kill any snails to create Korean beauty products or any other beauty products for that matter. And that's because what we're talking about when it comes to snail mucin in K-beauty products is not the snail itself. So we're not crushing up a snail and putting that in the beauty product. We're actually taking the snail's trail. And the trail of the snail is the little slimy thing that is left behind when the snail is moving along. So if you have ever seen a snail in the wild, you will probably have noticed that as they move along, they leave like a slimy trail behind them, and they excrete snail mucin to protect their own bodies, particularly when they're walking over rough surfaces, things like, roots, leaves, twigs, and branches and things like that. Snails have a very soft body, so they excrete this mucin to give themselves a nice smooth ride, I guess, so that their body is not hurt. And that's what we're really talking about in today's episode, is that piece of the snail's trail that is left behind. So we're not hurting the snails. In fact, for this whole process to work, it kind of makes more sense that the snails don't die, that we don't want them hurt. We don't want to do anything that would stop them from excreting their mucin like they normally do. So another then common question that I get asked, also a really good one, is, well, why is snail mucin so good for skin? Like, why are we using it anyway? So snail mucin itself naturally contains a whole heap of skin-friendly goodies, things that we often go out of our way to put in beauty products, things like proteins, elastin, glycolic acid, hyaluronic acid, and copper peptides. So it can give the skin a range of different benefits, and snail mucin is honestly good for many different skin types. So it can be great for firming and tightening the skin, for giving plumper, softer, and more youthful looking skin. It can help reduce visible scarring from things like acne and pimples, as well as reduce pigmentation. And it's really great for hydrating. So hydrating dull skin, dry skin, rough skin, taut skin. So a whole range of different skin issues, basically. But another thing that I thought you guys might find interesting, because snail really has been popularized by Koreans, certainly in the last sort of 5-10 years. It's actually not a Korean invention at all, or a Korean discovery. Apparently, the ancient Greeks used to use products with snail mucin in it, and they would use them topically and also internally, so like ingesting them. So snail mucin has been around for a really long time, and the Greeks also knew of snail mucin's potential to heal the skin. So that's just a little tidbit of information. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of how snail mucin itself is actually harvested, I just want to quickly read out one of the lovely reviews that was left for the podcast, and this was from with Megan Kelly on Instagram. So from Megan, and Megan says, "I'm so happy to see another K-Beauty podcast entering the scene. Lauren has some great information and tips, especially for beginners. The first few episodes have also been quick and straight to the point, which is great for my short attention span. Can't wait for more." So Megan is actually another former resident of Korea, and she blogs and writes about K-Beauty on her Instagram page with Megan Kelly. So go and check her out if you're interested in reading more product reviews and things like that. And don't forget to leave your own review for the podcast. And if you do have a blog or an Instagram page or a YouTube channel, particularly one that talks about beauty products or things like that, don't forget to leave your Instagram handle so that I can share that with everyone and also give you a little bit of a shout out. All right, so on to the topic of how snail mucin itself is harvested. Luckily, these days, there are lots of different cruelty-free methods of snail production and extraction. So we've totally moved on from the days when snails basically used to be dunked in pots of water with salt and vinegar, and we've moved into a lot more humane methods of collecting snail mucin. And in fact, there are many companies that are using snail mucin in their products that have actually been certified cruelty-free by PETA, the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. And I'll go into a little bit more detail about how that's possible, but basically the research shows that the quality of snail mucin itself depends upon the breeders keeping good environmental conditions for their snails. So breeders regulate what the snails eat, how they're kept, and also how the slime itself is extracted. And this also then helps in the process of certifying snail products as cruelty-free. So in Italy, the snail mucin is extracted by immersing the snails in a special steam bath that acts like a spa for snails. And the snails are not harmed in that process at all. And I know that in other farms, sometimes the snails are simply placed in an environment where they can move over bumpy surfaces, because that's basically what they're doing in nature. So when they excrete their slime in nature, it's because they're walking over a bumpy surface. So other farms, you basically try to, recreate the conditions that the snails would face in nature in the farm and then collect the mucin that way. So there's a couple of different ways that they're doing it these days. But it's like any kind of breeding program or, farm program, I suppose. Your animals are your business, so you want to treat them right, do the right thing, feed them well so that they can, if it's a cow, keep giving us more milk, if it's a snail, more snail mucin. So I think, it's not necessarily problematic to collect the snails mucin if the snails themselves are being treated well and kept in, good, clean, healthy environments and leading as stress-free a life as possible as they would in nature. So in terms of what kind of snails are used, the commonly used breed is the land snail, and that's the one that you'll find in COSRX's products. So at the end of today's episode, I'm going to go through a couple of the really popular K-Beauty lines that feature snail. And then in terms of who collects the snail mucin, well, obviously it's the breeders. I don't think they let just anyone go in there and collect the essence, or the snails, the excretion. Not to mention, I'm not sure who else would know how to do that. But yeah, it is the breeders themselves, the ones that raise the snails, that then go in and collect the mucin. And the mucin is then treated afterwards. Obviously, there's a process that needs to happen for the mucin to be cleaned and things like that before it just goes and gets put into cosmetic products. And this is true of most natural extracts as well. It's very rare that someone would just pull something out of the ground and then pop it into a cosmetic. There's a process in between that needs to happen. So now for the big question, is snail mucin cruelty-free? So it is possible, as I've already alluded to, it's totally possible for the snail's mucin to be certified cruelty-free, and that's because the snail itself isn't harmed or killed in the process of collecting the mucin. So that's how it's possible for K-beauty companies to obtain the certification. And I know for a fact that Benton is a Korean beauty company that has had its snail products, the Snail Bee High Content Essence, the steam cream, and their mask is all certified cruelty-free by PETA. And also COSRX, their famous advanced snail cream, and their essence are also cruelty-free as well. So it's definitely totally possible. Obviously, snail mucin is not a vegan ingredient, so there is a difference between vegan certification, so vegan being anything that comes from an animal or the byproduct of an animal, which would encompass things like snail mucin. So snail mucin cannot possibly be vegan, but it certainly can be cruelty-free, and that's because no snails are harmed, basically. So yeah, in terms of the quality of the snail mucin, it can differ product to product, but I think the thing that makes the biggest difference is going to be the concentration of snail mucin in the actual product. So some products have a very, very high concentration. For example, I know COSRX's Snail 96 Mucin Essence contains 96% of mucin, but then there are a lot of other products that I see coming onto the market these days that they might not have the highest concentration of snail in them, but they combine that concentration with some other really hard-hitting complementary ingredients to improve the efficacy of the formula, which can maximize the benefits for our skin. So examples of this would be Unique's Black Snail Restore Serum, and also APLB, their new Healing Moisture Snail Cream. So I'm going to pop links to all of these products in the show notes for today, so you don't need to worry about taking them down or anything like that. This will all be in the show notes. So I guess a word on how you can actually use snail products in your beauty routine. So I think I have seen snail in just about everything that you can possibly put it in. I've seen it in soaps, essences, toners, serums, ampoules, moisturizers, sleeping masks, sheet masks. You'll basically find it, even BB cream. I've seen quite a few snail BB creams. So my top tips would be to at least try and use it for 2 to 4 weeks before you see, you'll need to be using it for that amount of time before you see any real results. And this is basically the same as any new skincare product. The skin's natural renewal cycle is approximately a month. So to see any real results with most skincare products, you need to be using them for about that long. It's fine to use snail mucin day and night. It's definitely light enough to apply under makeup. Depending on the formulation, some do tend towards the slightly sticky side, but then again, there are just as many products that really don't have any stickiness left over. So don't be put off by the fact that it is a mucin. It's definitely not gooey. And it does have basically minimal to neutral fragrance. So you're not going to smell like you've been, smearing snails on your face. I'm not sure, I can't say I've ever sniffed or smelt a snail in nature. So I'm not sure if they have their own distinct little smell, but snail mucin in beauty products does not have a particular smell, so you don't need to worry about that. And it is a really good ingredient for layering, which you guys will know is one of K-Beauty's really favored techniques for, hydrating and getting all of the good different ingredients into your skin. So it's got a quite viscous property to it. So that makes it a really good binding ingredient as well. So I think pretty much everyone can find a place for it in their routine, but I would definitely caution you guys to be careful when you're doing your patch testing. Snail is one of those ingredients that people can react to, and it's one of those things that if you react poorly to it, you just really can't use it in your routine. So definitely patch test your products before you slather snail all over your face, because it can cause whiteheads and things like that if you are not compatible. So if your skin doesn't agree with it, you will break out probably. It's definitely not everyone. I would say it's a small percentage of people that break out from using snail products, but it's not to be ignored. So just test it out, see how you go. If you've got no bad reactions or anything like that, go for your life, slather it all over your face. But I do know that a small percentage of people have adverse reactions to it. So that's a bit of a shame, but there's plenty more ingredients out there if this particular one isn't for you. So what results might you expect to see using snail mucin? I think that's the question that everyone wants answered. So it will improve the look and texture of your skin, particularly if your skin is damaged, if it's acne prone, or has acne scars. And it's also a really great ingredient for mature skin. And this is because it replenishes skin's moisture to increase its firmness and suppleness and things like that. So it is a really, really popular ingredient, more so overseas than in Korea. The trend for snail mucin in K-beauty products is quite old, basically at this point. At time of recording, I'm doing this recording in July 2020. Snail mucin, I would say, was probably a lot more popular maybe 7 or 8 years ago, but in Korea now you won't really find it. It's more so in products that are for export, and that's because Koreans know how much snail mucin is beloved overseas. So I think it's far more popular among, Australian K-beauty lovers, American, Canadian, than it is, and certainly all around Asia as well, than it is within Korea itself. I think that a lot of that has to do with the fact that, Koreans in Korea are always on the lookout for the next new thing, and snail's quite old now, so, they've moved on to, in their minds, I guess, bigger and better things. But I know that a lot of people have an undying love affair with snail. So a few of my favorite recommendations if you're looking for some snail products to try out. The first one is APLB's Healing Moisture Snail Cream. So this is a really beautifully textured product. It has, if you go and check out Style Story's Instagram page, stylestory_kbeauty, you can see some videos we've got playing with the texture. It's just a really gentle, calming moisturizer, and it does treat a wide range of skin concerns: pores, dull skin, acne, fine lines, lots of different things. Benton, as I mentioned before, has a really popular snail line, their Snail Bee line. So they've got bee venom mixed with snail mucin, and that line is perfect for tackling blemishes, acne scarring, and pigmentation. COSRX, very, very famous brand for its snail as well. The Advanced Snail 96 Mucin Power Essence is a really, really popular product. I think it sells out all the time. I know on our website, I don't think the brand can keep up with production. It's that popular. And then Missha also. Missha was probably one of the first ones, I think, that really gained popularity overseas. They've got their Super Aqua Cell Renew Snail Cream. That's a product that has been around for many years now, and it's always been very popular. It's great for dull skin, damaged skin, acne prone, mature skin, scarred skin. So they're all some really great ones to try out. And then a new one is Sun by Me's Snail Truecica, and they're combining snail secretion filtrate with Cica, so Centella asiatica, and I know that they're billing, in particular their snail cream from that line, as a non-gooey one, so that might be a good one to check out if you're after a cream that combines lots of different benefits and isn't, sticky or goopy or will in any way remind you of snail. If you find that one a little bit off-putting, I would love to know if you guys like snail, if you've tried it, if any of these things have been putting you off trying it. Maybe let me know. and I will chat to you guys next week.